and he was the one person that Don Rickles detested the most. On May 8, 1926, Donald J. Rickles was born in Queens, New York. His more well-known name is Don Rickles. He became one of the most well-known comedians and artists of the 20th century, from very little. Rickles was raised by a Jewish family in the Jackson Heights area. His work would later be characterized by his quick tongue and biting wit, which he possessed from an early age. His father was an insurance agent named Max Rickles. His mother adored him and was a homemaker. Even as a child, she could see his humor. After graduating from high school, Rickles briefly attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. At first, he intended to pursue a career in serious acting. His aim was to be a serious actor in Hollywood or on Broadway before he turned to stand-up comedy. But he took a different route because of his keen observational skills and quick sense of humor. Following his stay in the USS during World War II, Rickles was a sailor in the U.S. Navy, serving in the Pacific Theater aboard the USS Siren. He felt as though he had a new purpose in life after returning home. He struggled to get started, as many warriors his age do, but his innate charisma and charm made him want to entertain. He began playing in bars in the early 1950s, initially as a struggling performer who interpolated his lines with humor. When Rickles saw that audiences preferred his witty jabs over his earnest attempts at drama, he devoted himself entirely to comedy. This decision would alter his life irrevocably and create a lasting impression on the entertainment industry. Rickles established himself in the comedy industry very rapidly. At the time, the majority of stand-up comedians offered humorous stories or constructed jokes. In contrast, Rickles was the first to employ insult comedy, which was a brand new technique. He would begin mocking everyone in the audience as soon as he took the stage, regardless of their identities or occupations. Everyone was harmed by his scathing remarks, including common fans and Hollywood celebrities. He gained a reputation for being able to mock anyone and still be appreciated for it. He was known as Mr. Warmth was a tender irony that demonstrated that despite his incisive remarks, they were always delivered with tender humor and compassion. Frank Sinatra, one of the world's top entertainers, attended one of Rickles' first performances in Miami. For his business, it was significant. While most performers would have been courteous to Sinatra, Rickles called him derogatory names while mocking his influence and authority from the stage. Sinatra became one of Rickles' greatest admirers after becoming enchanted rather than annoyed. He made Rickles a member of the Hollywood elite and introduced him to other well-known individuals. In addition to helping Rickles' business, this friendship demonstrated his courage and self-assurance, which contributed to the humor of his comedy. Rickles quickly became a regular on variety shows, including the Dean Martin Celebrity Roasts and The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson. His insults poured out so fast that they were the high point of such performances. Although Rickles began his career in stand-up comedy, he was capable of a wide range of roles. He co-starred with Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster in the 1958 film Run Silent, Run Deep. Later, he co-starred with Clint Eastwood in the 1970 comedy Kelly's Heroes. His ability to portray both serious and humorous roles demonstrated his versatility as an actor. He had his own television series, C, in the 1970s. A.P.O. Sharkey, in which he played a U with his witty remarks and sardonic humor. S, the Navy's chief petty officer. He was well known for being erratic and making even the most somber hosts laugh aloud. He also made numerous appearances on talk shows. Because he was chosen to voice Mr. Potato Head in Pixar's groundbreaking Toy Story films, Rickles' career took off once more in the 1990s and 2000s. He gained a whole new fan base from his work in cartoon films, who liked the way his sardonic nature was reflected in the characters. He continued to tour far into his 80s, performing for audiences that adored his unabashedly vintage style of comedy in places like Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and across the United States. Rickles never altered his act to suit modern tastes, in contrast to many other performers of his era. Rather, he thought his audience would realize that his humor was rooted in love, rather than hurt. On March 14, 1965, Don Rickles wed Barbara, Sklar of Philadelphia. One of the most significant and enduring aspects of his life would be their marriage, Although Rickles was known on stage and television as the Merchant of Venom for his scathing, unrestrained taunts, he frequently displayed a much softer side when discussing Barbara. Many of his peers viewed his marriage as a calming force in an environment where relationships were frequently disrupted by fame, ego, and professional pressures. Finding love had been difficult for Rickles, and he had been open about it. Despite being a growing comedy sensation in his 20s and 30s, he struggled to find love. Although his sardonic edge and biting wit were well-liked, they frequently backfired on him in private, leaving potential partners unsatisfied or afraid. He was 38 years old and still unmarried when she first met him. His acquaintances began to question whether he would ever marry. Through his agency, they had a fortuitous encounter that would transform Rickles' life. It was amusing that Rickles acknowledged that Barbara's inability or refusal to laugh at his jokes was what initially drew him to her. In contrast to many others, she didn't find his quips funny, which astonished him and piqued her curiosity. Rickles believed that Barbara was the ideal spouse for a man whose life was otherwise controlled by the turmoil of show business because of her grounded nature and quiet strength, which were completely different from the show industry milieu. They then had 2 children, Larry and Mindy. They both succeeded in the entertainment industry, albeit in different ways. Mindy Rickles would follow in her father's footsteps if she decided to pursue a career in acting, but she would approach things differently. In contrast, Larry Rickles discovered his calling as a behind-the-scenes director. Larry passed away at the age of 41 from pneumonia, ending his life. The Rickles family suffered a horrible loss. His passing devastated Don and Barbara, who had always been devoted parents. Even though Rickles made people laugh all his life, losing a son was still one of his greatest sorrows. Even when he was well-known and prosperous, it served as a reminder of how fleeting life is. The pleasures of family life continued to fill Rickles' heart despite the negative events. He claimed in his memoirs that his grandkids, Harrison and Ethan Mann, gave him a fresh perspective on his work. He worked for decades, made many late-night appearances, and had a significant influence on humor. His vocal role as Mr. Potato Head in the Toy Story films, however, was something far more straightforward that impressed his grandchildren. To them, their grandfather was not the well-known insult comic who had performed for presidents and battled Frank Sinatra. Because he appeared in one of their favorite childhood cartoons, they adored him. Rickles felt happy and laughed at this age disparity. He frequently made jokes about how a talking fake potato eclipsed all of his hard work as a comic. His wife of over 50 years, Barb, was by his side all the time. Their marriage survived. The highs and lows of Hollywood life, the challenges of parenthood, and the personal issues that accompany a lengthy public career, the couple's friends frequently spoke of their love and respect for one another in their relationship, which was built on love, joy, and trust. On March 14, 2021, precisely 56 years to the day after their marriage, Barbara passed away from non-Hodgkin's cancer. Their adventure together came to a tragic yet lovely finale. The harmony of the date demonstrated their closeness. It seemed as though their stories continued to resonate even after they passed away. The self-styled Merchant of Venom, Don Rickles, had very few enemies in the entertainment industry overall. He frequently used a wink and a smile to mock others and say hurtful things. Instead of hurting them, he did this to entertain and divert them. On the other hand, those closest to Rickles claimed that Denzel Washington seemed to evoke a more profound and intimate response in him than his typical insult comedy. For decades, Rickles had ridiculed everyone from Ronald Reagan to Frank Sinatra. He reportedly found Washington bothersome in a manner that no other celebrity ever did, in addition to being difficult to get along with. The simple fact that Washington and Rickles had distinct personalities made Rickles dislike him. Rickles thrived in environments with lots of laughter. He could put people down with his quick wit and willingness to make fun of himself, but they would feel better after laughing. However, Rickles struggled to understand Washington's earnestness, poise, and determination in handling himself. Rickles' remarks were met with laughter by many celebrities, regardless of how cruel they were. However, Washington had a reputation for being quite serious and rarely allowed Rickles to have a grin. Like Rickles, you were as much interested in the reaction as the humor. To him, Washington's expressionless gaze was the ultimate rejection of his humorous approach. It didn't help that Washington was seen in Hollywood as someone who could command weight, authority, and respect. He was regarded as a performer who exuded honor and discipline, bringing out the best in every role he played. In contrast, Rickles enjoyed turmoil and was a comedian who enjoyed making others feel uncomfortable, ashamed, and awful. They were like oil and water because of the disparity between their methods and how the general public perceived them. Rickles was able to make even the most difficult people grin or laugh, but he was unable to connect with Washington. He never disclosed to anyone how much it pained him. Over the years, Rickles frequently concealed his anger via humor. However, those who knew him well reported that whenever Washington's name was mentioned, Rickles' tone altered. His voice had a harshness to it, a dismissive tone that was unusual for him. He didn't save the amusing vitriol for his cronies in Hollywood. In private, Rickles reportedly said, "I'll tell you who doesn't laugh. Denzel Washington. He wouldn't laugh if you paid him. Because of him, Mount Rushmore appears to be moving." In addition to being inconvenient for him personally, Washington's inaccessibility was detrimental to his business as a comedian, whose entire purpose is to make people laugh at the most bizarre moments. In certain ways, Rickles' distaste for Washington revealed more about him than it did about the president. According to Rickles, comedy is a means of establishing a connection with others, dismantling barriers, and being honest. His jokes were not the only reason why people didn't want to talk to him. He had the impression that he was being rejected. Therefore, during his lengthy career, Rickles was able to ignore a lot of hecklers, critics, and irate people, but he was unable to ignore Washington's refusal to comply. This silent struggle of wills, Washington's equal need to maintain his honor, and Rickles' incessant drive to make others laugh, created a special tension that made Rickles uneasy whenever Washington's name was spoken. Therefore, Don Rickles was just as cruel to leaders, friends, and celebrities, but his treatment of Denzel Washington was unique. Washington was the only individual in the group with whom Rickles could never establish a genuine rapport and earn their confidence. That one error was more notable than all of his accomplishments combined for a man whose entire life was devoted to making others laugh. On April 6, 2017, Don Rickles passed away at the age of 90 at his Century City, Los Angeles residence. He was one of the most well-liked and significant figures in the entertainment industry. Kidney failure, which had gradually weakened him in his final days, but did not diminish the power and wit that had made him famous for so long, was the cause of his death. Over the course of an entire era of American comedy, Rickles led a lengthy and fascinating life. His passing signaled the end of an era in which people could laugh while still feeling like they were a part of the joke, thanks to witty, unrestrained humor delivered with a personal touch. Comments from all throughout the entertainment business flooded in after his death. Actors, directors, comedians, and fans all expressed their admiration for his innovative career and their sadness at the loss of a man who had served as a friend and leader to countless others. During his final years, Rickles stayed in the comfort of his Century City, Los Angeles, home, and spent time with his family. Rickles chose to live in Century City, which is renowned for being upscale and near the heart of Hollywood, because it demonstrated his significance in the entertainment industry and his long-standing ties to the city that had played a pivotal role in his career. Rickles never truly ceased enjoying performance, as evidenced by the fact that he continued to do voice work, interviews, and TV shows far into his 80s, despite the fact that his career had slowed down significantly in his latter years. His keen sense of humor persisted even as his health deteriorated, and he was still regarded as one of the greatest comedians of all time after retiring. Following his passing, Rickles was laid to rest in Los Angeles' Mount Sinai Memorial Park Cemetery. This cemetery is well known for being the last resting place of numerous prominent members of the Jewish and Hollywood communities. family, friends, and fans can pay their respects in this serene graveyard located in the Hollywood Hills. The fact that Rickles was interred there alongside other celebrities demonstrated how significant he was to American culture. For his friends, family, and many generations of fans, his tomb became a place of both joy and sorrow. It served as a memorial to a man whose personality and sense of humor revolutionized comedy and popular culture. The longevity of Rickles' art was further demonstrated by the fact that he passed away at the age of 90. Not many performers had maintained their popularity for so long. Despite the fact that comedy evolved throughout time, he never wavered from his unique style. From the smoky pubs of the 1950s to late-night talk programs, Las Vegas stages, movie sets, and animated films, he was a well-known figure to people of all ages. Because of this, his passing signified the end of an era in the history of entertainment, rather than just the loss of a man. His ability to connect with people, his fearless approach to comedy, and his status as a cherished friend and family guy who disliked being in the spotlight were all lauded in comments left after his passing. All right,